Well, here we are, folks. I am letting you know, warning you that there are spoilers in this portion of our program. So if you have not seen the fight and you're waiting to learn about the decision or learn about the fight, then I suggest you turn this off now. But here we go. Let's go live to the decision.
Thank you very much. Well, the scorecards of this exhibition, according to the former WBC world champions, is a draw.
You heard it. A draw.
I'm good with that.
Mike Tyson being gracious, saying I'm good with that. 8 rounds, 8 2-minute rounds, the completion of a fight. Roy Jones Jr. against Mike Tyson. At the end of that, there was some talk before that there would be no judges, that there would be no decision. Not correct. There were 3 judges scoring the fight. They scored them round by round, and they came to the determination at the end of that it was a draw. That is just an unjust decision. I sat and watched a fight with a number of martial artists, fight fans. We scored the fight. It was not even close. Roy Jones did a respectable job. He managed to stay in there for 8 rounds. He managed to tie up Mike Tyson a lot. He managed to keep from being knocked out. That is, in and of itself, a testament to his skill and to his stamina and to his good training. However, if you were to watch the fight, for one of the judges to score it as a draw, for another judge to have scored Vincent Penzienza, to have scored Roy Jones Jr. as having won the fight, is just inconceivable. It is hard for me to understand how it is that anyone could have come to that conclusion. 8 rounds, the first 3 rounds, Tyson came out like a beast, like the Tyson of old. Fast, strong hands, the aggressor in charge. Jones looked tired. He looked confused. He threw almost no offense whatsoever, although he did manage to keep Tyson from knocking him out. Rounds 4, 5, and 6, some punches thrown by Jones, much more aggressive, much better footwork, much better able to move around the ring, yet no significant offense thrown, no significant punches thrown, no damage done. Neither man was able to knock the other down. Neither man was able to knock the other out, of course. But then you get into the final 2 rounds. Jones had some energy. However, he was not able to muster a significant defense against Mike Tyson. It is without any hesitation that I say to you that I have scored the fight every single round for Mike Tyson. Now, would I have scored rounds 4, 5, and 6 a little closer? Yes, absolutely. Rounds 1, 2, and 3, handedly for Mike Tyson. Rounds 7 and 8 for Mike Tyson. Tyson was clearly stunned by the decision. The Tyson of old probably would have thrown a fit. I think Jones was stunned by the decision and didn't know what to say, was a little bit confused, a little bit embarrassed. The Las Vegas odds were on Tyson. I'm not sure how Vegas, from a betting standpoint, deals with a draw, which I don't think was really anything that anyone was betting on. The understanding, the belief, was that if this fight were to go the distance, that it would favor Jones, because Tyson hadn't been in the ring for 15 years. He's a little bit older than Jones, a few years older than Jones. And the fact that in his career, even with his 40-plus fights, had rarely, if ever, gone the distance in his fights because of knockouts. However, Tyson's conditioning was clearly exemplary. He was fast. He didn't seem winded. He didn't seem to lose any of his speed. The 2-minute rounds, he seemed to be alive the entire 2 minutes. He seemed to be vital the entire 2 minutes of every round. All 8 rounds seemed to fly by with great ease. But the breakdown, I think that fight fans will be reviewing this. There was talk at the end, which I do not believe. There'll probably be conspiracy theories and discussions at the end that this was the plan all along, was to talk about a rematch and to talk about another fight. I don't believe that. I believe these fighters gave their all. I believe Roy Jones Jr. just was difficult for him to deal with the fact that Tyson was just, even though Tyson has been out of the game longer, Tyson seemed to have a lot less ring rust than Roy Jones Jr. did. It took Jones 3 to 4 rounds to get his bearings and to be able to figure out a little bit more of Tyson's timing. So while there is a discussion of a rematch, I do not believe that the fix was in from the beginning. I believe that Tyson was shocked. I believe that the judges were shocked. They were prepared to call the fight in the ring. They then decided to wait, and then the fighters met separately with this sports announcer, who also seemed shocked and who gave his decision. It's not a sanctioned fight. It's not a fight for any type of ranking per se. So the reality of it is that one might argue it was an exhibition anyway. It didn't really ultimately matter. But when two guys go in there after training as hard as they did, it's very, very clear that the end result should have been a declared winner. And that declared winner should have been Mike Tyson, even if that set itself up for a rematch between Roy Jones Jr. and Mike Tyson. Much talk about what would have happened in the 90s had these guys fought in their prime. It's hard to tell. Nobody knows. Roy Jones Jr. was the fighter of the decade for the 90s. Everybody knows about Mike Tyson in his prime. But where we were today, was I disappointed? No, I wasn't disappointed with the fight. The fight was a good fight. You certainly wouldn't have even expected something of that caliber. You know, there's a lot of talk, a lot of jokes. Snoop Dogg was one of the announcers, Sugar Ray Leonard, that, you know, in our youth, somebody in their 50s is an old man. And these two guys came in there and gave it their all, threw some serious punches. Nobody had any gashes. Nobody has any significant bruises. Nobody had any cuts. Nobody needed to have the fight stopped at any point. These guys put on a terrific exhibition, but they clearly didn't go into it as an exhibition. They went into it as a fight. There was talk that it was a sparring match, that it was an exhibition. Everybody gets a medal. That wasn't how they went into it. They went into it to prove something to themselves, to prove something to the fans, to prove something for those that have aged. And I think they did a good job. Will there be a rematch? Will anyone have a stomach for a rematch? I don't know. This was the largest pay-per-view event in the history of pay-per-view. Tyson's cut will probably be somewhere over $20 million. Roy Jones Jr. probably $7 to $8 million. One can't feel bad for either one of these guys. They put on a terrific event. The undercards, there's a lot of musical events. The undercards were great. Again, I'm going to give you some spoilers. Jake Paul's demolition of Nate Robinson was disappointing to me. I was hoping to see Robinson put on a good fight. But Badu Jack's fight, an excellent showing. And the first match, Ortiz match, was again a very, very good match. So it was a great fight card. It was well done. It was well produced. Difficult to do. Boxing is something that the fans are generally a significant portion of this. Had the fans been there, I thought about this, and this decision came down, I think it would have been really, really ugly for the fans to see in this situation that it was drawn a draw. I will take a look at the ring-by-ring scores. I'll take a look. I did see the three judges. I saw that one of the judges had ruled it even. One of the judges ruled in favor of Tyson. And as I said, I noticed along the way that one of the judges was scored a few rounds for Roy Jones Jr., which anyone who watched this fight would tell you Jones spent most of his time trying to tie up Tyson, trying to keep from getting hit, and trying to avoid, which he did a great job. But that is not a formula for a winning decision. That's a formula for staying and keeping from getting knocked out. But it is certainly not a formula for a draw. Tyson was faster. Tyson was stronger. Tyson had a greater punch percentage. Tyson looked better. Tyson connected with more effective punches. And it was clear to anyone who would watch this fight, whether you watch it live or you watch it in the rematch, that Mike Tyson won. So what's next? Hard to say. Certainly a great feeling for someone like me who's in their 50s to see such unbelievable good showing by two men in their 50s. Neither one have anything to be ashamed of. I think Jones was a little bit embarrassed by the decision because I think he truly understands that he lost. However, the judge's decision is the judge's decision. When there's no knockout, we have to live with it. We'll see what happens with the Legends Only Sports League. We'll see what happens with the press after this. And we'll see what happens with both of these men, whether they'll have a rematch with each other or they will have a future fight. We'll be there either way. We look forward to hearing your comments. We look forward to hearing, but I think that Taekwondo enthusiasts, even though this is boxing, we like combat sports. We love to see two athletes, seasoned athletes, engaging in high-level competition and combat, and there really was something for everyone. So feel free to let us know your feelings. Let us know if you agree with our thoughts on the ultimate decision, and let us know if you'd be interested in seeing a rematch. From Taekwondo Life magazine, I'm Mark Sorianis signing off.